Orangetown Town Board meeting. I hereby call this meeting to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Dennis Troy.
Present.
Councilman Tom Divany.
Here.
Councilman Paul Valentine.
Here.
Councilman Jerry Matari.
Here.
Supervisor Chris Day.
Here. Would Esther Baitler? So first, the Orangetown Town Clerk, Rosanna Sfragia, and is co-sponsoring, along with the Rockland County Solid Waste Authority and People to People, a paper shredding event and non-perishable food collection event on Saturday, April 13th that runs from 8 a.m. to noon. It's here in the Orangetown Town Hall parking lot. If you bring what you want shredded along with non-perishable food items to donate to People, beyond that donation you give, there's a board member at People to People who's going to match it with $1 in cash donation to People. So you're going to plus up whatever can of whatever you bring is going to be another $1 in cash to People, and you get to shred your sensitive items. It's free. Just don't bring anything chunky, plastic. That if it's not paper, don't bring. Yeah, if it's not paper, it doesn't shred if it's not paper. Is kind of the rule of thumb. So don't do that. But everything else you can bring. Next, we have the Camp Shanks Legacy exhibit, which is the story of the camp and its effect on the development of Orangetown. That's opening at the Orangetown Museum. The opening reception is April 13th, Saturday, from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Depew House on Chief Bill Harris Way in Orangeburg. It's sponsored by the Orangetown Historical Museum and Archives, and it will continue as an open exhibit during the normal hours. Finally, for an announcement, the public hearing for our proposed local law establishing zoning map changes for Route 303 and adjoining properties. That's based on a petition by a resident or property owner. That has been scheduled for April 30th at 8:05 p.m. Again, that's a zone change proposal for a portion of Route 303 nearby to the intersection with Erie. Moving on, we have a presentation by members, or the entirety of, I'm not sure how many are here, of their Historical Area Board of Review. Just as background, these folks came to me, or elements of them came to me, and said that they had some ideas based on the current code. Historical Area Board of Review is an operation in certain sections of the town, specifically Tapan and Palisades, the older, as one would think, sections. And it seems that, though I personally, and I don't think any of us are inclined to just sort of increase the amount of oversight over people, there seem to be some gaps that are at least at minimum confusing and need to be clarified in their authority and in who it applies to. So I'll let them take over, and we'll see what we all think about it once they've made their presentation.
Thank you. I'm Peggy Raso, Chair of the Historic Board. We met with the Town Attorney Dennis Michaels and Jane Slavin, and they recommended the following text amendments made to the Orangetown Code as it affects the historic zone. Section 12-4A reads, any change in the exterior design or appearance of a structure, we would like to have that change to any and all structures and eliminate the building and code references. 12-4E, owners of structures constructed before December 31st, 1918. We want that change to all structures. In other words, what we're trying to do is simplify everything. Because if a house has been built before 1918, there's one set of laws, then after that is another set. And it's confusing when someone has an addition put on an older home. Let's see, 12-4E, owners of structures constructed before December 31st, 1918, desiring to make alterations to more extensive than repairs, and thus requiring a building permit. Just delete that sentence. And in the case of an architecturally significant structure, change to architecturally and/or historically significant structure. There's so much confusion of who comes when and why that we thought for the people, it would be so much easier just to say, you live in the historic zone in Tappan or Palisades, you have to apply to have anything done to the outside of your home.
So, just a question. So, right now, if I own a home in,
The zo-
call-
one of the two
in one of the
zones.
historic districts, right,
Yeah.
right on Oak Tree and Palisades, yeah, right by the community center in Palisades, call it. If it's newer, or it's a new construction, it was built after 1918, I don't have to visit you no matter what I do, or is there a time in which I'd have to visit
If you
you?
have never come to us before, you could paint it purple dots and yellow if you
Well,
wish.
How would I know if the previous owner had come to you before? Would that be something that would be documented?
How
or-
would everybody know?
That's kind of the question, like, where this gets confusing. It's
Yeah,
in the building department?
would know, but do people check?
So is there any,
Sometimes I think people come and buy a home and they don't realize, real estate people say to them, you're in the historic zone, and they say, oh, that's great, but then it ends there. No one tells them of the whys and wherefores of living in a historic zone.
right.
And that happens quite a bit.
Jane, would you mind going up to the podium so we could have you up there and clarify the process? Because at least for me,
Chris, I
Yeah.
got a question.
Yeah.
So, right now, a historic house
yes,
is, definition is something built before 1918.
yes.
So if I buy a high ranch that was built in 1974, it's historic?
No, what right now
But
there
that's what
is,
they want to change it.
well, right now, some high ranches in 1974 fall under it if they ever visited the Historic Area Board Review for some other reason,
Let me
right?
Let me clarify.
Is that what I'm getting out of this,
Can
or
I-
am I
can I-
misunderstanding completely?
Why would they?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Okay.
That's why I brought them in instead of just talking amongst ourselves.
So, in the simplest form, first it starts with whether or not the person needs a building permit.
Okay.
That's number one. Number two, if they come in for a building permit and their structure is within the historic district, they go to the board.
Whether or
For
not it's
any
old
exterior
enough.
changes, correct.
Even if it's a newer structure, if it's in the district and they need a building permit, they go to the Historic
They
Area
go
Board
to the
Review.
historic board.
Okay, go on.
There's more restrictions on a house that's older than 1918, is what Mrs. Rasso had.
They don't need
Brought
a
to your
building permit to get, any changes then goes to Historic Board Review.
Correct.
For those houses.
Correct, any changes. So we send anything that needs a building permit. Now, a house from 1975 does not need a building permit to paint.
But to paint a historic house, you would have
The
to go.
older house,
But a
any
new
exterior
house,
change.
you only need it if you're gonna actually change the footprint in some way or something that requires a building permit. So you could put a shed up that's 10 by 10, you can't, because you don't need a building permit if you have a new house,
Correct, same thing with
without going down.
fences that meet our code. You don't need a permit for a fence as long as you meet the requirements in the code. It's when you don't conform any longer, if you need a variance or something, then that fence would go to the historic board as well.
So that's, I guess, answering the question. There's certain circumstances in which,
It-
if you,
so
because you're in the
really,
zone,
there's
if you need the
not-
building permit.
Now you need a building permit for a roof, you need a building permit for
Right.
windows, you need a building
Not-
permit for steps.
Not now, you always did, let's clarify.
No, you did, no, that's
Right,
what
it was
I mean.
always
You
part of the
weren't
building code.
always
So, yeah,
necessarily
so
made
if
to,
someone
but
comes
yes.
in to replace their roofing
So the-
shingles,
It's really painting.
Painting and fences
And fences.
and sheds.
Sheds
10 by
under
10.
100
10
square
by
feet.
10.
Though, are those, is there any other thing that you would guys would consider being worthy of getting there that's not a building permit? Just the painting, the fences, and the,
Everything else, just about, I mean. unless
now,
you could
part
think
of the,
something.
new roof will, the roof, if the roof is exactly the same,
it's a
we
repair.
we don't send it back to go
It's
to
a
the
repair.
board. Same thing with historic windows. If they're replacing in kind and they can demonstrate that they're replacing in kind, we do not have to send them to the board. I myself have done projects in the historic part of Japan that way, so
Okay, so now I'm confused, because you said anything that requires a building permit has to
if they're
go to-
right, so it's
So
not
you're
as
kind of
simple.
checking to make it, if it's
We
worth their
check
time or
it,
not.
and if we feel that it's slightly different, we'll
If it
send it.
deviates.
We've been trying to send as much as we can, obviously, but if someone challenges it and says, this window's exactly the same as the one that's there, I have no right to send them.
Now, here's my confusion. if I went in, or the previous owner went in, on a house built in 1919, let's call it, let's not be silly, let's make it an old house, but it's not a historic house. I went in for a building permit, therefore I had to go to the historic area review. Then 10 years later, I want to paint my house. Do I now, what I'm understanding is I now automatically have to go to historic review because I previously gone to them? That's what I was getting
Not
from
for
that
paint.
conversation. So
They don't have to come in.
they wouldn't have to come in.
Nope.
But I thought that was if you visited them in the past, they have to come in, is what I was getting from
Because if
the.
it's a condition of their approval,
Is
it
that,
possibly could
maybe I'm
be.
asking, is that a condition you put on any of your approvals at the Historic Area Board of Review? Yeah, if you step to the microphone, sorry, but they won't be able to hear you. No, you need you to go to the podium because they can't hear you, and I can barely hear you.
Because of the background.
So if I came in for a building permit on an old but not old enough house to visit you, do you put a caveat on that approval that in the future, any changes need to come to this board, including paint?
What we've said is if you want to paint, it should be in harmony with the area houses. And we always have people come in.
But,
Becau-
but if they're not, would you be required to, if I previously visited the board with a house that's built after 1918,
If you,
are you requiring them to visit for non-building permit
James
things?
said no.
no,
Jane said no, but that's the opposite of
No.
what I heard literally minutes prior.
that's why it's so confusing. That's why we're trying to simplify it.
Well, I mean, no, it's only confusing if that's the case. I mean,
Right.
but I was told in the meeting when you came in that what I was told was that if you come in, if you visited and you were after 1918 and you previously visited the Historic Area Board of Review, you then would have to come in for any non-building permit changes to the exterior. That's what I was told verbatim. Because you put it on your condition of your approval.
He had to come in because it was a condition of the approval. In that one time, that was a one-time deal.
It's only
Right.
one time. So then it's not really that confusing, I don't think.
It's very confusing, it is. I agree.
No, but it's not, I'm saying. It was confusing before when I was told that you had to come in if you didn't in certain circumstances, but I'm not confused anymore now.
Anything that needs a building permit in the historic area, regardless of the age of the house, that needs a building permit, you're gonna send them.
Correct, unless it's an identical
If it
replacement.
doesn't need a building permit, which is very few
I
items,
have no grounds for which to make them go.
but if it's a
Paint.
older than 1918, no matter what happens, if we're
Correct.
painting, windows, siding, fence, whatever, okay.
So I don't, that's actually not confusing at all. I was told explicitly that you had to go back if you previously had visited the board and you wouldn't otherwise have been applied to. That's what was said. Like, I'm not.
The
not by
one
you.
house that, yeah, that one house that was a condition of their approval, but if someone came before the board 10 or 15 years ago and painted their house blue back then, and now they want to make it red, they don't need a permit.
Right. No, I know.
So unless, and I
If
don't,
it's after 18, yeah.
right, and I don't know if there would have been conditions back then in some of these approvals.
I think the problem you're gonna run into is, someone I represent buys a house that's
Right.
from 2002. It's a high ranch. It's not historical nature, the architecture is not significant, and I gotta come to the historic board to paint my house, to put in a safety fence, because I have young kids or I have a dog, and and say, you don't like what you see, and you make me come back. To me, that's something that you guys shouldn't have, you shouldn't be telling people who don't have historical house that's not built prior to 1918, you gotta come into me to paint your house, put a shed, put a fence up. I don't think that, that's a good policy. We get complaints already from people about the slowness of getting permits and getting COs, and now we're gonna put another layer? I'm completely against that.
Okay, and I appreciate that. It might help if I explain the idea behind the historic district. I mean, there are two ways of doing things. We could just say that the DeWitt House and the 76 House and the Tappan Reformed Church and a couple of other structures are historic structures, designate them historic structures with all the laws and restrictions and let it go with that. But in 1965, it was decided to make the central area of Tappan and later on Palisades into a historic district. And there's a reason for that. understanding that there are houses of different ages, including modern houses that have come along. So essentially, what you have in a district, and the reason for a district, is that it's not just the 76 house, it's not just the DeWitt house standing by itself. In a historic districts, then, you have contributing structures and sort of ancillary structures. So the idea is that in a historic district, what you don't want is the DeWitt house in all its glory, and across the street, someone painting his house purple or green or, you know, stripes or whatever he wants to do, because that would detract from the appearance of the DeWitt house or the 76 house or whatever. So in this district, you know, you have houses that obviously are not historic, but you want them to, in some way, be regulated so that they don't take away from what people see when they come into the area. Now, you're talking about, obviously, people coming in and buying homes all the time, and what we did in 1997, and actually it was my suggestion, that at every entrance to both historic areas, signs are erected, and they were erected by the town, saying you are entering a historic district and regulations apply, so that there's no, basically people come in, they see this, and they're warned that this is a historic district.
I mean, the problem with that is you have realtors that will show you these districts. Some realtors are great, some realtors are not so great. I actually, when I represent a buyer, I put in my contract that the seller represents that the house is not located in a historical district. Because I want to know, because I tell them if it is in a historical district and you want to get a CO or you want to get a permit, you're going to have to go through another line of hoops. And now it's just more, and and I deal with it all the time, and it's
I understand I'm a realtor also.
okay.
And it bothers me when people either misrepresent or don't represent
Or
that,
omit on purpose.
that it's in a historic area. I will say that because of the historic area designations in Tappan and Palisades, I say that now is the good old days for Tappan and Palisades. Tappan and Palisades have never looked better,
I agree with that. Yeah.
okay? And I think
But I'll
that...
also say that, to your point, though, there's been new houses that have been put in, and they've done a good job of maintaining, even up down to the paint color. So maybe if there's no confusion about who you have responsibility for, which again, I'm not hallucinating, it was said explicitly to me that if you visited the Historic Area Board of Review and you had a house after 1918, you'd have to in the future visit them for things that didn't require a building permit. That was said verbatim to me in a previous meeting. Not by you, but so maybe it's an educational campaign. Maybe you guys come up with a general scheme of recommended colors, and we know when someone buys a home in the assessor's office and a piece of mail is sent to them saying, welcome to the historic district, your home is either, you have one for 1918 prior and one for post-1918, and one says this is what's recommended, and this one says this is what's required, and then you're just educating the buyer to encourage them to understand the way the community is in that area, as opposed to forcing them, when they don't have a historic home, to go through, and I don't even historically significant, like there's just a new house, like to go through those levels of.
We don't try to handcuff or put people in boxes when they come before us with respect to what kind of color they want to paint their house. We just want to try and keep the district harmonious, which is one of the words that is in our law that you gentlemen have all seen before. As Thana was pointing out, it's one thing to have somebody paint their house a shade of blue, but it's another thing to have them layer multiple colors on one home that is across from a major historic site. And that would be what we are trying to do, is simplifying and just saying that, look, if you're in the district, you come before us.
I will say also, in terms of the board being an onerous process, I've been on the board, it's been my honor and privilege to be on the board since 1985. I think I can count on the fingers of one hand, possibly, in those years, the number of times we've denied an application.
I don't think
And-
anyone thinks you're an onerous process. I think it's just any process that's, and no one step of our process is onerous. It's the accumulation of steps.
I think it's-
that causes onerousness.
It's just another board
You know,
that you
it's
have to
just
go in front
another
of.
Well,
thing. It's
once
not
again,
a problem.
the-
Your board's not a problem in any way. It's just, it adds another board to people
But
to
in
see.
terms of the overall result, as I said, the proof is in the pudding. The proof is the fact that the historic areas of Tappan and Palisades have never looked better.
And to be fair, though, that's under the current code that you've accomplished
I
that.
guess the question, how many houses and
That's the other, yeah.
how many times have you had this happen where someone wanted to paint their house or someone has? Because how many times has someone painted their house 6 different colors of the rainbow in front of or across from a historic building? I mean, are there any examples?
My tenure on the board has happened twice.
How long you been on the board?
Approximately 15 years.
So basically, it comes down to paint color, because everything
really
else
what it
just
is.
about
Basically.
goes back to,
Yeah.
Is there any,
fencing.
with
to
the
getting a
fence,
building permit.
with
Yeah.
fencing, is there any fencing style that you guys have that is more preferable than others?
I don't think we've really ever had a problem with fencing. You know,
All right, so
people are
paint
amenable
color is your
and
concern.
paint colors, no,
Paint
it's never been, fencing has never been a problem.
I don't know if I.
So I suppose there's the two questions we have to ask ourselves, and we don't have to decide tonight because it's just a presentation, is,
I mean, I was talking to Paul, I don't really have a problem with the paint color, it's more the fencing and sheds or something like that. So-
yeah, I mean, listen, the issue then becomes just how do we ensure that someone knows they have to go to, for something they don't have to otherwise put a building permit in for? Do we have to say that's a building permit or a special category building permit for painting a house in a historic district?
That's
How do you
more-
catch them
I think
before they
it's
put
more-
a pan of cane?
I think it's more
can of
like an
paint on?
Akabor thing, you go to Akabor, not to get a permit, but to get, they weigh in on.
Right, we have to inform people that they know, but
Well, the Akabor review process is
that's generated by a building permit, though, yeah.
that's what,
The problem is.
How do you generate this process?
How do you tell someone who's had his house since 1982 and painted it twice? They never needed a building permit now to paint his high ranch. Now I need a building permit to paint my high ranch, and
It can't be a full building permit, 100%. It has to be a special category of permit.
could
I don't even know
it, you
if it
can make
should
it a
be.
consultation with no fee, then we don't,
Right.
but then we
Right.
don't post and we don't notify, it's not
That's,
considered legal, and I'll defer to
does
the
that,
attorney
does that make
about
sense,
that.
Rob, or,
Then it's just a consultation.
And we've done that many times.
that's a thing?
All right, we gotta.
All right.
Recommendations.
We're open to it. I think it might work conceivably. We just have to figure out the mechanics of it. So we'll move the ball forward and try to craft something that we can talk about in detail
Should I read the
and
letter?
actually critique. I don't think it's gonna be exactly your changes you recommended, but, because I don't think that's quite enough necessarily to make it work, but it's also a little too much to what we actually want to accomplish at the same time.
I have a letter from one of our board members who couldn't be here. May I read it?
I think we get, I would, but I know there's people for public comment and everything, and we're just gonna holding it up. But if you wanna
Okay.
submit that to us, we'll
All
read
right.
it, yeah.
Do they have copies of it?
We'll take
or-
the copy, yeah.
All right, I'm going to give it to Jane
Yeah,
and
she'll
submit
make
it.
photocopies for us and we'll read it, yeah.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much, thank you. Okay, we'll work on something and figure it out. All right, so next we're gonna be workshopping the agenda items. So we're on page 2 of the agenda. First, we have the resolution we left off last time to actually circulate the petition for the zone change that we have already scheduled a public hearing for the 303. Then item 4 is to set a public hearing to amend the town code for filming. Essentially, there's just some stuff that we've run into since we took over the filming. It's just literally like some minor tweaks as to the permitting structure and fees that we need to just adapt a little bit to. So we're not talking about changing massive stuff here. So that's the resolution to set the public hearing, a resolution to declare lead agency on it. The main change to the code is going to be making that the fees will be set entirely by resolution, whereas right now half of them are set by resolution or half are set by code. So it allows us that flexibility. 6 is the planning board appointment, which is right now blank. Are we comfortable with the gentleman that we put forward and talked about and putting him in and voting tonight? Or do we want to bring him in? What do you think, Jerry? You haven't seen anything from him? Okay. Mike?
Mike McCory, the battalion chief for the FDNY.
Okay. He wants to, I think he wants to speak offline a little bit, with him a little bit. Okay, we gotta get someone in there, so I think we just have to come to terms with the fact that by the next meeting, we have to have a name in these blanks and vote. I have no problem with the person's been put forward, but I think we need to know what we wanna do. But we'll give it one more meeting and see.
Chris, can you speak up? Didn't hear you.
Certainly, sorry. The next is to designate a climate smart community coordinator and task force. There's a program called Climate Smart Communities. It allows us to qualify for certain grants. This doesn't cost us anything, but basically it names Eamon as our coordinator and it names our environmental committee as our task force, so that we can actually have this program. It's kind of step one. We can probably achieve certification with stuff we're doing already, which will then qualify us for different grants if we want them for other buildings and stuff like that.
Are the members of the environmental committee that you've named all residents of Orangetown?
Yeah, actually, I'm a little
Except Dennis.
there's, I think there's one that's not. I don't know how she's on it.
Shouldn't they be
Yeah,
residents
well,
of
she's not,
Orangetown?
she's not actually on the committee, though. I don't know how she got her name in here.
Well, then it should
So
be
we'll
on
have to
there.
strike that. Peggy Kurtz is not a resident of Orangetown, so she will not be on the committee, but the rest would be. She was at the meeting, I think, was confusion there. She lives in number 9. She'd been appointed to environmental by Andy back in years ago, and then we caught last year that she wasn't a resident, and we didn't appoint her. Next is approve temporary attachment permit agreement for military banner program. I'll talk about this for a second. Other towns have this. You're all familiar with it. It's a veterans thing. You get to pay for, residents can pay for a military banner to honor a veteran. It goes up in a certain districts of the town, one in Orangeburg, one in Pearl River, and one in, I think we were gonna do in Tapan, right? Spark Hill, sorry. We're gonna start in Pearl River and Spark Hill, and then we got permission here to do it also along Orangeburg Road. So people will be able to pick the hamlet they're from, get a banner honoring their veteran. We actually, there's no cost to the town whatsoever. It's all paid for by the people who do it, which want to market it before Memorial Day and get out there with it. Next is the resolutions associated with the changes to the parking permit code and everything that we changed last time. Right now, Rosanna can't really issue the permits because we never actually approved the fees schedule. These are, some of them are the same cost as what they were previously, but they're different types of permits. So the first one, municipal parking permit, it changed to what we said it would change to, so now anyone could park in these lots with this, and they don't have to use the meters. This is basically the same cost we had already for the previous commuter parking permit. Then the merchant parking permit, this is for parking at the meters that are marked merchant only. This is unchanged from previous. The overnight parking permit, 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., this is a new thing, just for overnight parking. So the structure of this cost is kind of just splitting the difference between some of the other ones. It allows people to park overnight in the marked spots for permit parking only, for full year or for seasonal, between 2 and 6 a.m. 24/7 parking permit is one that existed already. The cost was so high that we had 0 permits, so we're dropping the cost slightly to see if we can get people to take the permits out and not sneak around on the streets risking the ticket, to try to encourage compliance. And then we're also then designating the rules of the lots. The rules of the lots are unchanged in terms of the hours of the meters and being in operation, the hours that the permits are required. The 2 lots that are near Central are 12 hours, maximum parking time, 25 cents per hour if you use the meters. You don't need the meters if you use the permit. The former commuter lot, now another municipal lot for anyone who's not a commuter, is still early through late to accommodate for our commuters for 16 hours, 25 cents an hour if you don't use the permit. Previously, there had been a permit required to park there and then use the meters, which was a low-cost permit. Now you can park there without the permit, but you have to feed the meters the whole time. There was a bonus time before, so it balances out. And then the last thing in this proposed resolution is to designate the permit parking only area. That's the area where 24/7 permits must park their vehicles and where any permit holder can park if they would like to, but non-permit holders can't. There's no meters on those spots. This would be after talking to the parking enforcement, generally where the current 24/7 meter spots are, or non-meter 24/7 spots are, but a little bit more of it. So the back wall on the northern edge of the Joe and Joe parking lot, and then the western entryway going up to Washington in that same lot. So it kind of loops in an L around there to make sure that our overnight parkers are consolidated, so when highway has to clear the snow, they're not dodging cars, and that we are all consolidated in one spot. So those are the proposed resolutions to set the fees and everything. Any thoughts?
I was just going to make changes as to form, not so much substance.
Mhm.
On under number 2, and I'll send this to Rosanna, I think we could word it a little other than must still feed the meter. Maybe we'll say must still pay for
Must still
the
pay
meter fee as required.
pay meter fee as required. Yeah.
Right. And then municipal lot 1 down below, I'd identify that as municipal lot 1 between Central and Washington, right? Is that what we're talking
Yes,
about?
between Central and Washington.
And then, and municipal lot 3 is on the corner of William and Washington, right?
Yeah, rather than the private
Right,
business
because
names.
of the businesses. What's that?
I think we should say these are the fees adopted now, but the town reserves the right to amend these on 30 days' notice without having to come back to do it at a board meeting.
Well, we have to do it on a board meeting. We don't have to do a hearing anymore. This is all resolution based now, because the law passed already, so we never have to do a hearing to change the fees again. We can do it the next day, the next time we have a regularly scheduled meeting. There's no notice required right now.
Right, it should be by resolution.
I think you should say something that we reserve the right to change these fees on 30 days.
A disclaimer that it might change.
Some notice
Yeah, makes
to,
sense.
because those are the phone calls we'll get
Yeah.
when we do change it.
So maybe add a sentence to the end, the town board reserves the right to change these fees by resolution.
On 30 days
I
notice.
would leave out the notice just in case, because
Well,
we could do it on a day's notice if we want to right now.
I think 30 days, you give ample notice to people, well,
I mean, again, it's not a legal requirement. If you want to put it in there to make it,
well,
I mean, we did it by resolution, so you wouldn't have to amend the code, but
Yeah, the only issue is we didn't do any formal notice for this, because it's a resolution.
I know
but we had a.
We did have a public hearing on the code change, but it's two different things.
I know there's language in, when we did the change for the garbage fees, there's some language that at a regularly scheduled meeting,
Maybe that's the
30
good one.
days out, something like
All right,
that.
Yeah, whatever the garbage one is.
Yeah, I'll
That's good.
I'll
Make
try
it
to
happen,
find them while we're
Robbie.
sitting here.
All right, so we know what that is, so we'll just go find that and copy and paste it into here, and that'll be what we vote on. Okay.
No, we're not back. No,
Anyone good? Good?
I'm
All
good.
right. Granicus, this is a pilot program. We're just going to test out new software related to our agendas and also to allow us to have tablets instead of paper. We ran into some headaches and an increased possible cost on the current one we're using, so these guys will let us test this out for free and see if we like it or not. Then a collateralized municipal deposit at Sterling. I'm going to be honest, Jeff, I don't know what this is. Can you just explain it?
Yeah, essentially Sterling has an agreement with Bank of New York Mellon to basically collateralize their monies. We have collateralization requirements, so Sterling is using a third party, a much bigger bank, to increase their collateralization. So,
Okay. And for those of us who aren't finance MBAs, could you please explain what collateralization is?
well, they have
Or
to have
those of us who didn't pay attention in that class and there's finance MBA.
well, they have to have it's sufficient safeguards in case the company goes bankrupt, so that we don't lose our money. And so this is how they do that. Bigger banks will do it themselves. Smaller banks will use bigger banks to provide the
So using
collateralization.
another bigger bank to make their money safer.
Yes.
Good. Got it. Thank you. Then we have sewer registrations. Then the declaration, we're amending a restrictive covenant related to an affordable unit. It's just relocating it, and this was done a while ago, but it never got documented.
Yes,
right,
this
Rob?
had been before the planning board some time ago, and actually, I think the town board as well, but this is just kind of clarifying. When these units originally went in, they made some of them affordable, so they got extra units. These are the ones over at, across from Blue Hill. And they asked to change the location of one of the affordable units. That was done, went to the planning board. This is just there was a restrictive covenant that had to be filed. This is just authorization to change that restrictive covenant to reflect what's actually there. And again,
Okay.
this is something that was
Correcting
already
the record.
reviewed. Right.
New bid for traffic signal at the intersection of Convent Road and Third Avenue to Verdi Electric. This is one we were already planning on, right, Jim? Or is this is a light we were planning on already? Yeah. Oh, yeah, the Convent one, yeah, we talked about this. Yeah, this is already paid for by Chase, yeah. Okay, good. Then attend highway school for personnel in the highway department in Ithaca. Then we're awarding the bid for the contract for recyclable materials. We are 6 years out of contract, right, Jim? And plus, so it needs to be done. We're going up, obviously, because it was 6 years out of contract. What was the old rate?
I think it was
425. More than 8 years. Yeah, and now we're going up to 6 from 2 to 550, which is still really below what other municipalities are paying. Stony Point got quoted like 12, I think, per unit. So we're doing pretty good, even though we had to get a new contract. So yeah, it was a public bid, and it's the best we can get. So
Yeah, actually, there was substantial information about the number of people that this was sent out to.
yeah,
And only one actually inquired, actually one of the foil, find out what our last bid process was, to check prices, and Capassa was the only one that did.
yeah. No one else can meet the price, basically.
Right.
Okay. Very good. Then we're lending assistance for the Provo Memorial Day Parade on May 27th. Then approve it to lend aid for the Dennis P. McHugh Fun Run in Piermont on Saturday, June 1st. Accept volunteer efforts of Girl Scouts, the Girl Scout Silver Award for the William O. Schaefer Nature Trail. They made improvements there. And have they finished, Eric, or they're in process? They're getting started. We have to accept it before they can get started. Then approve the contract for athletic court repair for our tennis courts, no more than $50,000. I know that Eric's in the past explained that these are in really bad shape and someone's gonna get hurt, so we gotta fix it. 22, this is recognizing the decision of Superintendent Dean to terminate employee number 3489. We are not the appointing authority on this, so that employee's, the decision is at the highway superintendent level. We're just putting it into the record. Then audit, and then adjournment. Any questions or things you'd like added to the agenda before we move to public comment? We good? Good left, good right? Okay. All right, so public comment. You have 3 minutes. We do not respond unless it's an emergency to things that are being said until the end of the public comment session. If you get to 3 minutes, if you could please wrap up whatever sentence you happen to be in the middle of. You don't have to stop abruptly and awkwardly. Again, you can talk about whatever you want, but we're not going to answer questions at that moment. We'll be answering questions at the end as a group. And then at that point, there's no dialogue back and forth once the session is closed, for those of you who have not been here before. All right, the first public comment is Esther Baitler of Venture.
Good evening, Supervisor Day and town board members. My name is Esther Ann Baitler, and I'm a consumer who lives at the Kathy Lucas Independent Living Center in Fork Hill. Tonight, I'm here to address Supervisor Day, Dennis Troy, and Tom Designate. Number one, the reason I can't march is because I have osteoarthritis in my right leg and ankle, and every month I go for cortisone shots. So for you to come out with some really nasty comment, it's hurtful. You say, oh, you got caught, Esther. You got caught, Esther. That's totally inappropriate. And I feel I deserve an apology, a sincere one. You know who you are. You need to fess up to it. Tom, it's you, Chris, and Dennis.
Esther, I'm going to stop you because this is completely false. No one said
Oh,
you got...
I watched you on TV
No
when
one
you
said you
said
got
it.
caught, you got caught, you got caught. So, enough.
Tom, number one, I'm old enough to be a daughter. You need to be respectful to me.
I'm respectful, but I won't listen to this because this didn't happen.
It did happen. I watched the March 12th meeting. Yes, you did. It's totally inappropriate. Chris, would you like me to tell your father how you guys were laughing at me? You ought to be ashamed. That's deplorable. For you to say, oh, Esther, you got caught. But one thing you don't understand, I can't march. And truthfully, it's HIPAA. I feel that I deserve an apology. Well, Dennis, where were you when you were supposed to march with Venture at the St. Patrick's Day parade? You know you're wrong. You don't want to admit it. The other thing I'm asking, I am against the zone change where Paul Valentine works. Maybe they should put zone changes in Stony Point. But enough with all these zone changes. It's just hypothetically wrong.
Thank you,
Also,
Esther.
John Murphy, I expect everybody to be there
Thank you, Esther.
on April 13th for
Thank
an
you, Esther.
interview.
Thank you. Well, let us address that one before we get to the next comment. Dennis, if you want to, since you made the lighthearted comment.
Yeah, I did make the comment. The comment that I made lightheartedly was that Esther was telling us, all of the board, that we had to march with Venture. Made a point of it at several meetings. And all I did was point out the fact that Esther doesn't march with Venture. And it's a thing. I've marched with Venture over the last 10 years. I did not march this year, all right, because I wanted to go earlier in the parade. It's a thing where I did not know Esther, I did not know you had osteoarthritis or whatever. I did not know that. You never told me. You told me everything else in the world, but you didn't tell me that, and I apologize for making a lighthearted comment.
I think it's important to understand that Dennis was making a joke because he likes you, Esther, not because he was trying to make you feel bad.
And by the way,
we all do, and that's what that was.
I've been on the
Right.
Venture Board for over 20 years. I'm on their Budget Committee,
Right.
Budget and Finance. I'm on their IT Committee. I put a lot of time into Venture through the years with fundraising, so Venture is very important to me.
It was, and it was just a joke that we thought it was meant in a way to encourage us respecting each other as people and having fun, and that was all. All right? Next we have Derek McCarrow from Indianapolis. That is not a hamlet in Orangetown, as far as I know. And he's speaking about a cell tower.
Good evening.
Go ahead.
Yes, my name is Derek McGrew. I wasn't sure exactly how to fill out that column on your sign-in sheet because I'm not from a township or borough from around here.
Fits well.
So yes, I'm here from Indianapolis. I'm here representing a company called Tower King. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a small tower company in Northwest Ohio. And Mr. Day, I think I initially contacted you to discuss the potential of placing a communications facility on the property that the town owns south of Nike Overlook Park. And been discussing via email with Teresa Kenny, your attorney, the potential for doing something like that on that property. And there are some complications due to the fact that it's classified as New York State parkland. And she said that in order to start spending time on it, she wanted to make sure that there would be town board support before she starts spending time on it. So that's the reason I'm here tonight. If you're not familiar with, can you just nod if you guys are familiar with the property I'm referring to?
We know the property, yeah.
Okay. Talking about a cell tower, or it's actually, I want to be clear, it's not a cell tower. This is actually for point-to-point communications. It'll look just like a cell tower. As a matter of fact, the type we would propose is identical to the one that's right behind Town Hall, if you're not familiar with that. It looks like a steel telephone pole, basically. And I was hoping you'd ask some questions, because I wasn't aware that I would have to wait till the end of the meeting for any feedback. But that's the general idea of what I'm here for tonight from Indianapolis.
Okay. This is unique. Usually it's not a business proposal in the course of public comment. Let's do this. Let's finish public comment and bring you back up for discussion. That way everyone else gets their fair share, and then we can talk business afterwards, all right?
Great, thank you.
Cool. Yeah, it was a random email sort of. We'll talk. Anyway, Eileen Larkin of Palisades. Can't read what the topic is, but I'm sure you'll share.
I missed you guys. I've been out of commission for about 5 weeks, but I'm getting better.
Good.
The reason I'm here to talk tonight is to talk about the proposed legislation to legalize marijuana. Some municipalities have taken a position that to the governor saying that they are not in favor of the legalization of recreational marijuana. Most experts will tell you that it is a gateway drug which leads to other more stronger drug addiction. The March 7th issue of the Journal News has an excellent article about what has happened in the different states that have legalized it, especially when it comes to car accidents where people are driving under the influence of marijuana. So I guess I'm asking you tonight to consider doing a memorial resolution to the governor and to our other elected officials, Senator Colucci, Ellen Jaffe, and Ken Zabrowski, asking them not to support the legalization of recreational marijuana. If you have been very lucky not to have suffered the effects of someone in your family becoming addicted to drugs, you're very fortunate. I can tell you the horrors of it, starting on personal levels, on friends who have lost children. They started in high school, went to parties, they got high, they went to whatever bothered them psychologically, physically, whatever, all led to other use of drugs. And it is life-changing for the family. It is life-changing for the individuals. And I think it's a sad commentary on someone who grew up on the sidewalks of New York, where you played stickball, you hung out with your friends, and you had your recreation, not by consuming drugs, which this society is affected by. Opioid drugs are killing our children. They are in institutions for straight love, strong love, whatever it is. It is an absolute heartbreaking time in a person's life when they see a family member becoming destroyed by a drug. So I'm asking you tonight to send a message to the governor, who I think is getting a message that the state of New York doesn't want it, the state of New Jersey hasn't passed it. So maybe there are people out there that are making personal phone calls and asking that we do not move forward with recreational marijuana. It's a sad commentary on the 21st century, that the way people can have a good time is to get high on a drug. They can't find something else in their life to make them happy. It's very sad. I'm glad I grew up where I grew up, on the sidewalks of New York. I'm glad my children did not necessarily escape. And I can tell you full well that it is devastating. So all I'm asking you tonight is to consider doing it for your families, for your family members, whoever you know. Take a stand.
Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Finally, on the sign-in sheet, we have Sean Hayes.
How you doing, board? I'm number 3489, employee 3489, Sean Hayes. I'm not exactly sure what good it's going to do for me to come down here, but I had to try something. Determination of employment is my job that's on the block. I don't know how or why that's possible. I got hurt on the job. I'm still receiving treatment. In a statement for the agenda by Jimmy Dean stating that it's been declared that I am permanently disabled when I have documentation from every doctor, surgeon, orthopedic specialist appointed by the highway, my own personal surgeons. I just had a second surgery this Friday, revision, all stating that I will be able to return to full duty. I will be able to come back with no restrictions. And yet I'm still here receiving treatment and about to get terminated. I mean, that's gonna affect me, that's gonna affect my family, benefits, everything. I need some answers. I got nowhere else to turn. The union has no answers for me. Nobody I know has answers. Anything. Somebody's got anything for me. Mr. Dean, please. I mean, if it's up to you that can determine me losing or keeping my job, I beg you. I don't know what else to do. I'm trying. I'm doing multiple therapy sessions. I haven't had strength of my arm for 2 years. I've run the gauntlet. I'm at wit's end. I don't know what else to do other than to plead, you know, to better behalf. That's it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment who is not signed in? Yes, Barbara. Barbara, you just read your name into the record for when you get up there.
My name is Barbara Dello. Hearing the historic board speak dovetails nicely with one of my concerns about our town. The fact that it is cumbersome, time-consuming, and perhaps confusing for the general public to be familiar with all the nuances of the town code, and the need perhaps for a vehicle where the members of the public could ask questions about the town code. I mean, I had 2 questions already, and I tried the town attorney's office, and I understand by contract the public should not ask them questions, which seems to benefit the town attorneys more than the public. But I happened to think about it, and I understand that's a contract. And I don't know where else to go. And I was wondering if it's possible, I know Rosanna has like certain hours where people can come in the evening and on Saturdays, and I wonder if there could be somebody in the town who would be available at certain times to the public so that they could ask questions about the town code. For many years, I knew nothing about it until I found out my driveway was 6 inches too wide, and we had to rip it up. And there are other nuances in there. They're talking about paint colors. I think someone moving might not know about paint colors or this or that or the size of sheds. And it seems to me that there should be a vehicle in the town or a place in the town where people can go and ask about the town code. And maybe that's something you could do. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Is there anyone else for public comment who is not signed in? Seems like everyone else here is an employee, so I'm going to go with no. Motion to close the public comment period by Councilman Divney. Is there a second? Councilman Troy, all in favor? Aye. All right, so we're going to come back to Derek just to discuss this, so I'll leave you for last. In reverse order, Barbara, my office and building department we always will answer any questions at any time about the code, and if you're not sure who to go to, and the public's not sure who to go to, if they reach out, we'll find the answer, we'll put them in touch with someone in the town who can answer it. What I will say is that I've talked with Jane about the possibility of doing a building department mailer, the same way we do with Parks and Rec mailer and a highway mailer, so people know what requires a building permit, what that process is proactively. It might be a good idea to explore so we avoid these headaches and confusion when people come in and they didn't realize they needed X, Y, or Z for a permit. Just do a cheapo mailer out the way we do for leaf pickup. I don't know if you guys would think that might be a good idea or not, but it's an option, I think, to talk about. Sean, we can't get into details of your case legally. You can talk all you want about it. We can't legally talk about it. What I can say legally is that we're not the appointing authority. We're not the ones that making a decision here tonight. We're just recognizing a decision that has been made. And I'm not even going to call Jim up because all he's going to be able to stand up there and say, I can't say anything publicly about this. I feel for you. I'm sorry, but we're not able to make a call on this one way or the other. We're simply documenting what decision's been made already, and legally we can't talk about it in public. So, sorry. Anything else, gentlemen, about those public comment period? No? Oh, the marijuana. I'm sorry, Eileen. What do you guys think about marijuana and doing a memorializing resolution?
I think it's an excellent proposal, Eileen. I mean, the state of New Jersey, which is, they have the Assembly, they have the Senate, they have the governorship, and they still can't get that law passed, even though they had supermajorities. And I was talking about this with someone the other day. It's, you know, you legalize it, but one of the biggest problems is how do you test? Tests will show up for 30 days. So you pull someone, you know, like there's so many nuances that you can't address. You know, if you're drinking and driving, you know, you get rid of the alcohol within a certain period of time. With marijuana, it's in your system for 30 days. So, you know, you're going to legalize it, and then you pull someone over 15 days later, he tests positive. I mean, is he still high? I don't know, but to me, before you legalize it, you got to know how to test for it so that you can protect drivers on the road and people in the community. So I think it's a great idea, Eileen.
Is everyone else? Dennis?
On the same issue, I agree that we should have a resolution against the use of recreational or legalization of recreational marijuana. It's a thing where I definitely believe it's a gateway drug. Matter of fact, our good governor 2 years ago thought it was a gateway drug. Now, I believe he and some of the alleged leaders in New Jersey, all you have to do is follow the money. They just see this as tax money from marijuana, as a big pot of money so they could do whatever programs that they want to do. And not programs, you know, in terms of, you know, drug abuse or whatever. I think it's just whatever their giveaway programs are. And I think it's a major mistake for New York to do that. You got enough issues here in New York without legalizing marijuana.
And I think if you look at the states that have legalized it, there's been an uptick in a lot of issues. And I'm sure we've all read about them with different psychoses going up, crime going up. It's not the same as medical marijuana. So I guess my question for everyone is if we're going to do a resolution opposing legalization of recreational marijuana, do we want to add anything to that about supporting medical? And do we want to add anything to that about what the county should do if it is passed anyway? In my opinion, if for some reason the state passes it and it's just a matter of us opting out and not getting any revenue when we were forced to, and it's still legal in Rockland, we shouldn't probably opt out of it. But the state shouldn't pass it to begin with. That's what I think. If we want to leave that part out, that's fine, but either way, we'll craft something. So, thoughts?
Yeah, I support the medical marijuana. I support that. And again, if the New York State, Albany Senate and Assembly and their infinite wisdom legalize it, I think Rockland should opt out.
You think it should opt out?
They can keep their money. You know, that's my own attitude towards it.
I agree.
So you support medical, oppose recreational, and support opting out?
Yes.
Tom, what are your thoughts on those three?
I go along with that.
Jerry, what are your thoughts? Okay. So we'll get that crafted for the next meeting, and we'll have something on the agenda. Thank you. All right, that's all our public comment. Going back to the agenda items, this should be relatively quick. Item 3, accepting petition and circulating for the proposed local law. We're going to have one abstention on this. Is there a motion? Councilman Troy, second by Councilman Divney. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Number 4, resolution to set the public hearing on April 30th, 8:15 p.m. to amend the town code related to filming. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, second by Councilman Troy, all in favor? Resolution for SECRA and lead agency for the same public hearing. Is there a motion? Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Troy, all in favor? We're going to skip 6. We will be voting on this at the next meeting. We'll make sure there's a name in the blank. It's number 7, designate climate smart community coordinator and task force as amended. Is there a motion? Councilman Troy, second by Councilman Batari, all in favor? Resolution to approve a temporary attachment permit for O&R for the military banner program. Is there a motion? Councilman Valentine, second by Councilman Batari, all in favor? Resolution to designate public permit parking areas and municipal parking lots for Pearl River. Is there a motion as amended? We have, just to summarize, it's all sort of textual. It'll be, must still pay the meters fees as required instead of feed the meters. The lot descriptions will be amended to refer to the streets they're near, not the private businesses. And then there will be a second thing at the end stating about the type of notice we'll give if we change it again in the future, which will be equal and identical to that required for sanitation rate changes.
It gets a little complicated because that has to do with after the sanitation commission votes, so it's.
Excluding the portion about the
Well,
sanitation
obviously,
commission
but,
voting.
In terms of what triggers it, I mean, maybe we'll, I don't know if you want to do the 30 days or upon, it has to be on 2 board meetings or something.
How about this?
Because it is, to put another.
You're right, that is
burden
kind of
on-
weird. All right, so how about we just do it as must not be voted at the first town board meeting in which it appears on the agenda. Will be voted at the second town board meeting after it appears on the agenda. Yeah, is that okay?
Yes.
All right, great. Is there a motion? Councilman Valentine, second by Councilman Troy, all in favor? Approve 30-60-day free software pilot program for Granicus. Is there a motion? Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Valentine, all in favor? Third-party custodian agreement for collateralized municipal deposits. Is there a motion? Councilman Troy, second by Councilman Batari, all in favor? Certificates of sewer registration. Motion by Councilman Valentine, second by Councilman Divney, all in favor? Amending a declaration of restricted covenant for Blue Hill. Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Batari, all in favor? Approve surplus highway equipment. Motion by Councilman Valentine, second by Councilman Batari, all in favor? Award bid for the new intersection being paid for by Chase at Convent Road. Is there a motion? Councilman Troy, second by Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Grant permission to attend the highway school in lovely Ithaca, New York. Is there a motion?
Moved.
Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Troy, all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution to award the bid for contract for recycling to Capasso, right? To
Yep.
Capasso.
Moved.
Is there a motion? Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution to approve assistance for the Pearl River Memorial Day Parade. Is there a motion? Councilman Valentine, second by Councilman Troy, all in favor?
Aye.
Lend assistance for the Dennis P. McHugh Foundation Run for Fun in Piermont.
Moved.
Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Accept volunteer efforts for Girl Scouts on the William O. Schaefer Nature Trail. Motion by Councilman Valentine, second by Councilman, we'll give it to Troy on this one. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution to approve a contract to fix our tennis courts. Is there a motion? Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Valentine, all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution to accept the determination of the Superintendent of Highways regarding employee 3489. Is there a motion?
Moved.
Divney, second by Troy, all in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have pay vouchers. Jeff, I'm told that today's a special day. What's today, Jeff?
Jeff got his haircut.
No, he did. He did, but that's not that special. He gets that regularly. Today's Jeff's birthday. 29 years young, Jeff Bensick. Happy birthday, Jeff. The big what? We're going to leave that number blank for you.
Thank
It's a
you.
big
I
round number, I'm
appreciate
sure.
that. Round numbers are never good. Okay. With that being said, tonight's audit consists of 2 warrants for $1.6 million. The first warrant had 1 voucher for $21,000 and was for highway crack sealing. The second warrant had 210 vouchers for $1.59 million. Items of interest, 1 and 2, the applied golf contracts. Number 3, Atlantic Salt, $36,000 for highway salt. Number 6, the CSEA Employee Benefit Fund, $31,000 for CSEA healthcare, dental care. Number 10, General Code, $41,000 for central data user fees. Number 12, Global Montello, $15,000 for fuel. Number 14, Department of Civil Service, $764,000 for CSEA healthcare. Number 15, Sprague, $16,000 for fuel. Number 16, the Comptroller, $43,000 for justice fines. And number 17, Vermeer, $54,000 for highway equipment, and that's bonded money. Any questions on the audit?
Questions? Motion? Moved. Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
I forgot something. I forgot our gentleman who flew all the way from Indianapolis. He would probably pretty annoyed about that. Please step up to the podium. So everyone knows what happened here. Basically, he sent an email. It was determined that this is in parkland and would require alienation legislation.
But
This
it's
is a,
state parkland.
this is town parkland, right? Town parkland. It's not, it's technically in Nike. It's in
Okay,
Nike.
It's in Nike.
It's in
Yeah,
Nike. It's
'cause
south of like the
he
main part of
said
Nike.
state
But it's in town. It requires state legislation, but it's in town parkland. It's confusing for people that.
Sorry.
I was going to bring this up in executive session because it's technically a land sale, but since he's here and we're not going to be negotiating price right now. Generally speaking, you want to put in a tower in an area that's not really frequented very much, but is technically parkland, already has a structure in the vicinity, right?
There are a bunch of wood poles up there.
Right.
With antennas on them. There's no, I thought there was a tower up there, but there's not.
But there's poles with antennas, but no tower.
They're just wood poles with antennas. Yeah.
How tall would this tower be?
We need 195 feet.
Okay. And how tall are the current structures on there?
Yeah, probably 30, 40 feet,
So
maybe 50 at the most.
for us on our end, you know, there's a huge, I can't overstate how difficult of a process it is to sell land that's parkland in New York. You basically have to give your firstborn son up to do it. We had to go through a lot of pain just to get an amendment to an existing law about parkland that didn't even actually result in selling it. It was just an amendment to an existing one. So
Okay.
And they still broke our chops.
yeah, it was still a headache.
Is that something the town has to do, or is that something I can assist with?
You can assist in the sense that you could help us like with the writing of whatever, but in the end, it's going to be us with our lobbyist, and you can meet with people, but we're going to have to convince the New York State Assembly and the New York State Senate currently are not the, I don't know, most business-friendly group of people, that it's okay to sell this one little, probably 12 by 12 patch of land,
And then replace it.
with another piece of park somewhere else. And also probably pay to them the difference in value into our park trust between the two pieces of land if there's a difference in value once
And I don't
appraised.
think the public is gonna be, you know, the Tweed Boulevard Association, people will not be fond of this at all. You're
Does
gonna
it-
be able to see that from anywhere in town.
Actually, you're not going to be able to see it almost anywhere unless you're across the
190
river.
feet?
You won't be able to see it anywhere except across the
It's
river.
on the
There's
other
too
side
many-
of the peak?
It's surrounded by trees. I'm sorry?
Is it on the other side of the peak or is it at the peak of the mountain?
It's up where those wood poles are. I don't really know what you mean by that. So, one thing I'm not sure I was clear about, we're looking to lease, not purchase.
Okay, but a lease is equivalent to alienation of park.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that, okay.
What was that? They want to lease, not purchase. But
That's
the location though is,
But they're just normal, streetlight poles, they're either. Yeah, but I mean, they're just normal height. So it's either 40, it's
Oh, yeah,
either
here.
30 or 40 feet.
let's, can you step to the podium so people can hear this? Because you're gonna get into something complicated here.
There's a restrictive covenant on the property that nothing can be erected up there that exceeds 690 feet above mean sea level. And I don't quite know the exact elevation of the top of Nike, but I think it's over 600 feet. So if you're saying.
So there's a deed restriction.
Yes. And that's with the
would
federal
prevent
government.
it Flat out, because we got
Right.
this from the feds. It used to be a military base. and
Right.
Where is the Control 44 tower?
It's up pretty much the top of the mountain, where the Watchfire is. If you've ever been up to the Watchfire, it's right up there.
And
Yeah.
how tall is that?
I want to say they're 40 or so feet tall, 40 to 60
Kinda
feet
normal
tall.
on
That sounds kind of
property,
small.
like-
Yeah.
Yeah, what they used that for is that it was transmissions that were not going through to NIAC, so they had to hit
It's a relay.
a tower and relay down, yes, for the police radios.
Right, for not for cell
Oh, yeah,
phones.
no, it's
for
very
like-
important. No,
Yeah,
it
not
was.
cell
it's a line of sight thing.
Now, how tall are our other towers in the town, Teresa? Like 100?
Don't you know that, Teresa?
No, 195 feet sounds very
How
high.
tall's the one out here?
It's a lot of feet.
It's pretty short. I would have to guess, but it's probably 100 feet, maybe.
Okay.
Almost
Yeah.
two-thirds.
We might have had one that was 120 to 150.
Something to say.
You'll see.
All right, so I think what basically the general takeaway is, though we would love to at least and get paid for something, and before we even get into the question of what the neighbors might think, there are two significant and one impossible to overcome obstacle if it's just the restrictive covenant restricts the height and you need a certain height. We
Okay.
can't go deal with that. And then the other one is leases, if it's a long-term lease, which you'd want, is the same thing as a sale when it comes to alienation of parkland, because it
Understood.
removes the access to the
Okay.
parkland. So unfortunately, I don't think we can make it work. I just don't see how.
No, the deed restriction
The de-restriction
is
kills
going
it.
to kill it. yeah.
And the other one almost killed it. It was already dying, so.
Yeah.
I hope you visit some of our fine restaurants in town and are staying at one of our hotels locally.
I have other reasons to be here. but-
Okay, good.
But I appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't feel so bad then. All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you. All right, last on the agenda, we're gonna move into executive session to discuss contracts,
One's a litigation matter.
land swap, sale,
The possible land.
and one other thing. Litigation, contract, and land sale. And we're gonna, so we have two folks to adjourn in memory of Francis Farrelly, a resident of Pearl River, and Loretta Riordan, former employee of the Town of Orangetown Receiver of Taxes Office. Does anyone want to offer any additional thoughts on either of those two?
Frank Farrelly was a Vietnam veteran. He also retired out of the New York City Police Department. He was a sergeant in the New York City Police. He had a distinguished career in law enforcement, and he's a member of the Hibernians, and he was just a great guy that died too soon. Hmm?
Didn't he work at Broadacres?
He also worked at Broadacres too, in
Worked
his
at
retirement,
Broadacres
yes.
With my brother Tim, and Tim always had good things to say about Frank Farrell.
That was a good man.
All right. So, is there anyone else that is on the list that you'd like to enter in memory of? No? Okay. So I'm going to move that we enter executive session to discuss contracts, legal matters, and possible land sale, and immediately thereafter adjourn in memory of Francis Farrelly and Loretta Riordan. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Divney, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.